All right, so Bran II, hey? Here we go. Which which, dear listener, you haven't heard me comment on for about like 16 chapters now, unless of course you have you've come here straight after listening to my Bran II commentary. If following separate POVs, story arcs is indeed your thing. Either way, gentle listener, I mean, if you have managed to listen to more than one of my commentaries, wow, you have my admiration. And why not my gratitude as well, because I like to think that someone out there is listening. So, welcome one more time to the ramblings of an insane person online. These particular rambling commentaries being about George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, Book 3, A Storm of Swords. And why did I start this particular chapter with a comment on where the chapter list, where in the chapter list this particular Bran POV can be found? Well, because let's face it, Bran's POV chapters, few and far apart as they are, not to mention isolated from the rest of Westeros, the Resteros, they're kind of difficult to place on the timeline of events in this saga. What with Team Bran doing their own thing out there in the frozen wilderness. Did I say wilderness? The frozen wilderness. Anyway, in the desolate frozen wilderness, almost never interacting with any other major character, let alone any POV character. Now that's about to change, of course, as we go on reading, but that's not for now. And if you're new here, dear listener, let me just relay my spoiler policy before I forget. None. There, my spoiler policy can be summarized in one word: none. In case you happen to be a first-time reader, in which case I'll just assume you read just the previous two books plus this one and made it till the end of this chapter so far. So Bran 3. So when it comes to references outside this chapter, I will only be looking back and not ahead. But for now, at the beginning of the chapter, with regard to the timeline, how do we even know when this part of Brian's arc is taking place, given that Team Bran has been carefully avoiding civilization for fear that Bran might be seen, especially by the Iron Men, the Ironborn, or Bolton Men, the Bolton-born. And that over the last two chapters, the only person they have met was a total stranger, possibly from the Liddell Mountain clan. And that's it. Well, luckily, there's our trusty, most precise ASOIAF timeline, which is a spreadsheet you can find online. And my gratitude always goes to the authors of said document, because really... So what does this timeline say? Well, apparently events and things that have been happening to other characters are not too distant from now, meaning that the chapter list is pretty much in sync with the actual timeline, with a few exceptions. I mean, Arya has already gone and done things that we have yet to read, because Arya 7, literally one chapter before this one, was the last Arya POV chapter we read. But what Bran is about to do now is actually happening after Arya 9. So there's that. And Jaime. According to this timeline, Jaime is no longer at Harrenhal, which is where we last saw him. But all right, that doesn't count as a spoiler, does it? I mean, you didn't think Jaime and Brienne were going to squat at Harrenhal forever, did you? Too many things to do, places to go, people to see, you know what I mean? But as I said, apart from that, Catelyn has yet to head to the twins, because she has already been told by the phrase that she has to, because, King Bob, that's what I'm going to call him now. King Bob had better go and apologize in person to old Walder and admit he done a poo-poo if he wants Walder's forgiveness as well as the hand of his daughter in marriage, one of his daughters. Samuel Tarly has just left Craster's keep right now at the beginning of this Bran chapter. He's left it for good, we hope, to go somewhere warm, as Craster's wives urged him, go somewhere warm. Taking Gilly or Jilly with him, who has just given birth to a baby. What else could she have given birth to? A stapler? I mean, we can assume Sam and Gilly/Jilly. I really kind of fancy Jilly, but I heard a lot of people pronounce it Gilly out there, so who knows? Jury's still out. We can assume that Sam and Gilly have left Craster's Keep. That's no spoiler either, because the place has become slightly unsafe. What with Night's Watchmen, mutineers, on a rampage, stabbing anyone that gives them a funny look, including their former Lord Commander Mormont, Lord Commander Mormont being a victim of a stabbing, not being a mutineer. That's it. R.I.P., isn't it? R.I.P. L.C. Mormont. And B, because it was their clear intention. Sam having promised Gilly, I will take you away from here, your baby will be safe. The trope of the knight in shiny armor, with a typically Martinesque twist, because the knight in shiny armor is Sam, which is cool. He's a self-declared coward who can't actually hold a sword, although really Sam is only a coward because he thinks he is, if that makes sense. Who else? I think it's good to sum up where we are in the story every now and then. So who else is... John is perfectly in sync with Bran at this point, but we don't find out until later. Oh yes, and Tyrion is also sort of like in sync, having welcomed Oberyn to King's Landing barely a week ago. So, if there's a character who's really out of sync, off the chart, out of sync, that's Daenerys, who by now has already done things narrated in Daenerys 6. And just to remind ourselves, we have only read Daenerys 3 so far. The acquisition of the Unsullied army, which took place when Bran and company were still hiding there in the crypts of Winterfell toward the end of Clash of Kings. So it's that long ago that Daenerys acquired the army. So by now, who knows what she's up to, right? So as they used to say at the end of every recap in the sitcom soap, confused? You won't be after this episode. Oh, do you know what? I think I forgot to... where is Sansa? Well, right now... Yeah, I did. I did forget to take notes about Sansa's whereabouts at the moment. Although, as I said in the previous chapter, Sansa's and Tyrion's chapters are kind of like linked together. And as we know, they're linked together because as I said, they're flatmates, really. They're a little more than flatmates and a little less than actual husband and wife. But yeah, so it's safe to assume that at the moment she's just, trying to make the best of a dire situation. Having been married to a man she totally doesn't fancy, and torn between doing her duty and hating the one house that is kind of at the time that the Lannisters, who are responsible for the what's the word? Dismantling, unraveling of her family. So yeah, there's that. And whereas, as I said, Tyrion met Oberyn a week ago, and we can assume that while all the while Sansa is still spent her days at King's Landing, walking about those lovely gardens, having lemon pies, and trying to go, oh, I suppose life could be worse. Although I really like her character arc, because she's becoming more and more cynical as the day progresses, and dear reader, listener / reader, be prepared to cast away your opinion of her as a bit thick and not too sly, but indeed naive. If you ever held such an opinion of her, because you'll see, she'll surprise you if that's the case. Anyway, all right, okay. So shall we go into Bran III? Yeah, all right, yeah, let's go. So they're in the forest, right? Team Bran. They're cautiously proceeding through the forest, all oak trees, apple trees, and cautiously because cautiously is how they do everything. Although apparently not cautious enough, because Mira startles a couple of red deer who immediately bound away, and the direwolf Summer wasting no time chasing after them. Bran would love to experience, Summer's wild hunt again. Can't get enough of that, and wishes he could jump into his skin. Literally, because we know that he can do it. He can warg with him, in that strange mind-merging sort of communion type thing that we know so little about at this point in the novel. And will you excuse me for a second? Son of a bit. Yeah, of course. I should have known. Nothing. The cat has just torn apart my duvet. Yeah, what are you going to do? Right. Any old way. The lovely intermission. Okay, so yeah, Bran wishes he could do that in that sort of communion type thing that, it's still a bit of a mystery. The rules aren't terribly clear to us. The do's and don'ts of warging. Is it a technique that can be perfected, and how, through what exercises? Anyway, no time for any warging right now, because Mira has spotted a town, or what's left of a town, really, just a tower on an island in the middle of a lake, and that's where they're headed. Because the place looks deserted, and you know how it is. It might be nice to sleep with a roof over their heads for a change. And if you're wondering where we are, wonder no more, because it's Jojen who prompts Bran to give us a bit of exposition. And we're introduced to the concept of the gift. Now, if you turn to your copy of A Storm of Ice and Fire, Storm of Swords, you'll see, as I'm sure you noticed the first time you opened the book, that there's a new map in the introductory pages. At least in the edition of the copies I own, that map wasn't there in books 1 and 2. And it only appears on the third one. The map I'm talking about, the one zooming in on the wall where all 19 castles are numbered and named. Well, that's where we see these two areas called the Gift and the New Gift for the first time. And I know that you're thinking, gosh darn it, la-dee-da, if that's how you tend to express yourself, dear listener, you're thinking, if their area is only making its first appearance here, you know what? I smell a retcon. I'll tell you what, you're probably right, but now both the Gift and the New Gift are here with their own backstory, history and everything, and they're here to stay. To quote a great writer, a story can be new and yet tell about olden times. the very definition of retcon or retroactive continuity. That's a quote from that great novel, The Never-Ending Story, by the way. A novel deceptively marketed as aimed at young adult readers, but not really. A masterpiece. Written by the late Michael Ende. I absolutely recommend you The Never-Ending Story if you haven't read it. Stay away from the movies, by the way. They made some 3-4 movies out of it. One of them with Jack Black, where I think they sort of missed the point, if you ask me. Anyway, back to the gift. What's the story behind the gift? Well, to hear the Maesters tell it, it was Bran's ancestor, king in the north, Brandon the Builder, although some Maesters disagree and claim it was a different one. I mean, a different Brandon, not a different builder. Imagine that. No, it wasn't Brandon the Builder, it was Bob the Builder. No, this is a different Brandon. Jury's still out on that. Anyway, it was some Brandon or other who said, "We are friends of the watch." So he gave up the land to 25 leagues up to 25 leagues south of the wall, to the Night's Watch for their sustenance and support there. Centuries later, King Jaehaerys I Targaryen and his sister wife, Queen Alicent Targaryen, yeah, that's right, he was a righteous king and all, but hey, he still went ahead and married his own sister. Anyway, they made a royal visit to the north. Alicent felt Brandon's gift was not sufficient to support the Night's Watch during her tour of the region, the grand tour she took. So the queen suggested to Jaehaerys that he double the land. I'm reading from A Week of Ice and Fire here. And the queen suggested to Jaehaerys that he double the land by extending it a further 25 leagues south, at which point the Northmen went, wait a minute, because it was their land. Their lands she was casually given away. But in the end, there was nothing they could do. So yeah, this is where we are right now, geographically speaking. And when Jojen asks, who holds these lands? All of that is the answer Bran gave him. Yeah, you know, at which point Jojen just went, all right, sorry I asked. No, not really. Just kidding. In fact, Jojen actually is interesting. The Jojen follows up with another question. He's just asking for it. Literally. So a village, an inn, a stout holdfast in the lake, all these apple trees. But where are the people, man? Why would they leave such a place? Yeah, well, the answer is wildlings. That's the reason. Or so Bran informs him. If they catch you, you know, they make your skull into a cup to drink blood, you know. Those are the stories that he heard from old Nan way back. And that skull story might even be true as far as some of the free folks are concerned. Rattleshirt comes to mind, you know. He's very fond of his enemy's bones, you know. But he finds lots of uses for it. So why not a cup? Be it as it may, the gift isn't safe. Let's not forget that even Osha, you know, a good character now, and a wildling herself, well, the first time she met Bran, she was probably going to rob him, eat him, make him into a lampshade, you know, Ed Gein style. So yeah, well, maybe not necessarily eat him, but... Who knows? She was a bit threatening. Not as much as her companions, but yeah. Anyway, the kids have to camp there for the night because a storm is coming. Except there's no roof left to the inn. So Bran proposes they head to the island and sleep in the holdfast. And how exactly do you propose we do that without a boat? Asks Mira. This dialogue is slightly paraphrased, but yeah, that's the gist. And that's when Bran gets to test if one of the zillion stories old Nan used to tell him is actually true, because there ought to be a strong pathway 3 feet wide, a causeway, if you like, hiding just a few inches under the water surface. In fact, not really hiding all that well, considering that the tiles No, no, not tiles. What are they called? The merlons. Yeah. The merlons, that's right, the merlons. They've been painted gold to honor that Queen Alisanne when she slept in that same holdfast. So you can actually see the causeway from above. Luckily, the wildlings don't own drones. Most of them don't, anyway. And so Bran knows exactly where we are. This place, well, we'll find out this place's name soon enough. Not in this chapter, though. And sure enough, there it is, the causeway. And if you think that the walk from shore to the tower is all smooth and skippy, dum dum dum, guess what? Yeah, for one thing, the hidden stones are slimy and slippery, because of course, why shouldn't they be? And we must remember that Hodor is carrying Bran in a basket on his shoulders, which means that if he trips and falls on one of those stones on his back, that's it. Squash. This might be the last Bran POV we get to read. Or he might fall into the water, which may well drown Bran. So yeah, the whole thing is looking rather dodgy. Actually, I said a few inches earlier on, but the causeway is actually a bit deeper in water than that, because they're all immersed in water as they do the crossing. Hodor up to his waist, and the reeds up to the chests. So there. So anyway, they make it to the tower and pry the door open and then enter the bang. Whoops. Sure enough, Bran bangs his head on the lintel. I told you, Hodor is carrying him on his back, and he's a huge guy. So, ouch. So they're inside anyway, except that the room they're just in is just an antechamber. What does George call it? A strong room, that's it. And yes, there are stairs on both sides, leading both up and down, but they are behind iron grates, which Bran immediately identifies as murder holes. I love it how in this universe one can just point to an architectural, element and casually go, "Oh yeah, that's a murder hole. I want one installed in my kitchen." Just like that. What purpose does it serve anyway? You say? Why, it's to murder intruders, of course. Yeah. Never plan, never design a house without one or two. So yeah, in spite of all efforts, even Hodor can't seem to force the iron gates open. So just as Team Bran seems resigned to spend the night in there, a room that's barely large enough for all four of them, Bran gives one of those murder holes above his head a shake and crash. The whole thing falls off the hinges. At which point Hodor just utters his catchphrase, Hodor. There are many ways to say Hodor. In this case, it means, yeah, well, I just loosened it up for you, It's a very versatile expression, this Hodor. So it probably sounded more like Hodor, So anyway, they can all climb up higher and higher, and the higher they climb, the less fortified the interior, for obvious reasons. Like third floor, arrow slits along the wall. Fourth floor, actual windows, because who's going to attack you there? The top floor even as a privy. It's a proper chamber with arched doors and stone balconies. They even have a look outside. Oh my God, look at those clouds. And Mira is actually impressed by the sheer height. Wow, this is exciting. Okay, I don't know how Mira actually sounds, but she does go, tell you what, I've never been so high up in a building. I haven't got a building that high, that reaches this high in the neck, Just trees are as tall as this. So I guess Castle Reed on that floating island, I guess it's not 5-story tall. The little Cranmerman Howland Reed doesn't need a huge castle. Makes sense, I suppose. And this is where we are reminded that their mission is to get past the wall and continue their journey north, and B, find a three-eyed crow who is supposed to teach Bran how to fly. Let me repeat that second part. Find a three-eyed crow who is supposed to teach Bran how to fly. We don't even know how much of it is literal, metaphorical, and how exactly does one find a three-eyed crow? Is it even an actual crow? Is it a person with a very peculiar dress code? How does one find it in the lands of always winter? Have you seen how large that geographical area actually is? Anyway, well, I'll tell you what. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, I suppose. Their immediate goal is let's get to the wall and past it, ideally. So we're reminded of all that because Bran tries to spot the wall from the roof of that holdfast, but no. Oh shoot, he goes. We can't even see it from here. We must still be at the southernmost tip of the new gift. And even when we do get to the wall, how do we get past it? That was going to be my question, actually. So Jojen, he has a plan. But Jojen said, that's all right, mate. We go through one of the abandoned castles along the wall. We're spoiled for choice. Because like in the heyday of the wall, only 2 or 3 of those 19 castles were unmanned. And now it's actually the other way around. But Bran, who has studied the wall extensively to the point of knowing the name of every single castle along the wall, has reservations about that plan. Because the gates were sealed with ice and stone whenever a castle had to be abandoned, And bad things could come through the gates. Not sure what bad things Bran has in mind. Grumkings, snarks. So couldn't we just turn up at Castle Black, he is thinking, and pretty please ask the commander to let us through? The Night's Watch is neutral, they don't have a dog in the War of 5 Kings race. At this point, more like the War of 3 Kings. But Jojen will have none of that, because all it takes is a Night's Watch brother to blurt out, the secret that Bran Stark is alive and well, and that's it. The cover is blown. The Ironborn or the Bolton bastard will find out about it. See, they know about Ramsay Bolton trying to find out Bran's and Rickon's whereabouts because that little guy told them in the previous chapter. And Bran is all like, no, man, it's cool. I've got family at Castle Black. I've got Uncle Benjen, a head, rather, because no one knows where he is. That is like an ongoing mystery throughout the series. It disappeared in arranging back in book 1, but Jon is there. Jon is there, which is not, but Bran doesn't know that. Anyway, this debate is cut short because Jojen spots some guy on a horse in the distance. He's over there, casually riding towards the village, which is where the direwolf Summer is at, still roaming around. And if this isn't one of those classical threefold revelations George R.R. Martin likes to deploy on his readers, well, in this case, it's more like a twofold revelation because Team Bran spots men on the shore just after certain characters have been mentioned. Yeah, you noticed? Wildlings, Benjen, Jon, and in the very next chapter, we'll find out exactly who these men are on the shore. But for now, it started to rain. Yeah, so they retreat to the lower floor, from whence they can still see the lonely rider. He's a lonely guy, lonely person. He's taking shelter in the inn. Yeah, no, he's a rider. Yeah, he did come with a horse. He's taking shelter in the inn, roofless inn, and he started a fire in the hearth. At which point Bran goes, oh, that's a great idea. Why don't we start a fire as well? And Jojen is all like, oh my God, Bran, dude, what did I just say? We want to keep a low profile, man. We don't want to be spotted by that dude. For example, at a fire, trust me, that guy would totally see it from over there. Which, he has a point. So they sit around in the dark, sharing some cold duck meat, some game Mira had caught the previous day. All the while, the man is there at the inn, what used to be the inn, minding his own business by the fireplace, raining all around, and Summer the direwolf still in the village, we presume, not too far from where the man is sitting, warming himself by the fire. Okay, I know it's becoming tiresome to hear me say Summer, that's the direwolf, you know? I get it, but with a name like that, I mean, there can be confusion aplenty. I mean, if I say Summer is just around the corner, someone might say, oh, no, sir. What you just said flies in the face of what we have been constantly reading over the last 3 books, I will have you know. I think you'll find winter is in fact coming, someone might say, while raising an eyebrow in order to adjust their single lens, what do you call it? Monocle, that's it. I mean, seriously, Bran, couldn't you give your direwolf a more unmistakable name? Not being funny. Tell you what, I think of all of you Stark kids, I think Rickon is the one who came up with the most sensible name for his own direwolf. Shaggy Dog. Yeah, that's it. Who's going to mistake that for anything else? Okay, so while the rain persists, suddenly, somewhere to the north, a lightning bolt crackles across the sky, brightening the inside of the tower for an instant, and that puts Hodor on alert. But it's exactly 8 seconds later when the thunderbolt cracks, and then, oh my, does Hodor really go berserk. Doesn't know what to do, grabs his sword, paces around the room. You can tell he doesn't like that one bit. And he's kind of like the opposite of the, I don't like it, it's too quiet, kind of trope, you know? Everyone around him is all like, easy, Hodor. Let's all try to chill, yeah? Give me that sword before you break something. But then another thunder bangs, and Hodor loses his shit. Just as more men join the lonely guy at the inn. It's Jojen who spots them. Other men, he goes, armed. I saw an axe and spears as well. I saw them when the lightning flashed, moving under the trees. I'm reading here, it's a verbatim quote. And many and more, too many to count. And I love it here how George R.R. Martin really tells us Jojen is really scared at this point. He had never sounded so much like the boy he was. Very good way of putting it. Because you know what's happening, right? The lightning illuminated the men on the shore so Jojen could spot them, but that worked both ways, meaning that for an instant, Team Bran up in the tower was also visible to those guys. What if they saw us? What if they're coming here? And now that the top of the tower might or might not have gotten those guys' attention, you know, focus. All that hodoring by Hodor certainly isn't helping. Bran is scared as well, but doesn't want to show it in front of Mira. There have been subtle hints that Bran might have been developing a mild crush on her. Because let's face it, I mean, younger boy exposed to the company of this slightly older girl who's capable, clever, not to mention the only girl Bran has seen in months. 2.5 months by the reckoning of that timeline spreadsheet thingy. So yeah, there's no way Bran hasn't been developing at the very least a micro crush on Mira, no? Meanwhile, Hodor keeps doing his crazy panicky thing until something interesting happens. Another thunder and Hodor just accepts it. Peaceful, sitting cross-legged on the floor like it's nothing. Meh. Wow, what did you do, man? Because that's kind of surprising. Mira wants to know, so she asks Bran, what did you do? Me? Oh, you're talking to me. Bran goes, nothing at all. Except that he did do something. And he knows it full well. This time he warged with Hodor. It was inside his head for literally a heartbeat, but it was enough for Hodor to skip that one thunderbolt. He sort of possessed Hodor, for lack of a better term, the way he often does with Summer. Okay, I'm just going to say Summer the Dire... I'm not going to say Summer the Dire Wolf this time, except that I just did. Anyway, so he won't admit it to the Reeds because they know full well that Bran is capable of doing that warging thing. It's his superpower, you know? And deep down, he feels that it's wrong with a human. You know, skin changing with a human is wrong. I mean, it's the kind of sentence you would want on as a PC screensaver, you know, bouncing around. So skin changing with a human is just wrong, man. No. And so yeah, but later on in the prologue to A Dance with Dragons, we will find out just how frowned upon this practice is in the warging community. Even though a certain warging champion does... Okay, no, I promise no spoilers. You know, shut up, Salsa. Anyway, Jojen spots something else that makes the whole team suck their breaths in out of panic. Again, something is happening there among those men on the shore. And one of them just pointed at the tower. Oh, no. Oh, that's no good. Or so it seemed. And I like it here how George R. R. Martin writes dialogue when characters are panicking. One thing he does well is the denial stage of panic. He does that often. You know, have you ever been at that stage? You know, when you just go... Because I know what he's describing, you know. It's maybe they're just mountain clansmen. No? Those people are friendly. Or Umbers. Umbers. Why? Why would they be... or possibly Night's Watch brothers, yeah. And anyway, maybe they won't need to come all the way up here to check. No? Right? Yeah? Yeah, it's Bran who chills everybody out because it just goes, but listen, they're not coming here because the causeway. That's right, the causeway. Mira confirms enthusiastically. Yeah, the causeway is hidden underwater. Everyone had forgotten that because panic. Show don't tell. Bravo, George. Yeah, all of this dialogue just conveys the perfect panic and the relief. I love it. Mira could just kiss Bran right now. In fact, she does. Still, Bran reckons the whole thing is worth investigating. So what does he do? Well, what else could he do? Like a good skin changer, he slips inside Summer. Oh, that's the direwolf. Okay, all right, that's annoying. All right. Because Summer happens to be just outside the inn. And the things he sees are men moving under the trees, and another man with a stick blundered by, a skin pulled up over his head to make him blind and deaf. Okay, a hood. See, Bran at this point interprets things with the eyes of a direwolf. It's only once he returns into his own skin that we will be able to put the pieces together and figure out what it is that he saw. Once he, processes all that visual, all the information with the human mind. It's what I think happens. And but what he does have, it might not have the cognitive, the human cognitive ability to process what he sees, but what he does have when he's out there as Summer is a keen sense of smell. So yeah, and he smells the sharp red stench of fear. Yeah. So who are these guys? Well, luckily we don't have to wait too long for the answer because it's literally in the next chapter, John 5, that we find out. So, shall we do like every Storm of Sword reader and go through these two chapters back to back? Yeah? In one sitting? Huh? Shall we? What say you, dear listener? All right, okay, here we go. I'll meet you on the other side. Ciao.